case began with a woman named Martha Rinaldi. Rinaldi has been an assistant product manager at the leading beverage company Potomac Waters since graduating from business school. Within her time at Potomac, she has grown to become very frustrated by her relationships with her boss and a close coworker, who also happens to share the same cubicle as her. Even though she works hard to please her manager and fellow coworkers, she has received a negative performance evaluation for her first 4 months. The lack of organization culture within Potomac has deemed itself more frustrating for Rinaldi. She initially took the job with Potomac because she believed that she would better her skills in the marketing industry. Though, after starting with Potomac, she soon discovered that her cubicle partner, Jamie, has been there for 5 years and has not adapted any marketing skills. The only thing that he has successfully done was start a relationship with his and Rinaldi's boss. Rinaldi is faced with a decision. She could stay at Potomac, where she is presently miserable, or she could leave them for a standing job offer at Deep Dive Pizza. The job offer with Deep Dive presented itself the previous summer when she was their intern. She excelled as their intern to the point where the CEO personally knew her and was pleased with her overall work. At Deep Dive, she would be given a better understanding of how to grow her marketing skills, as Deep Dive is in the process of expanding their name. While working for a startup was not something that she wanted to do initially, after working for Potomac, she is now seeing the benefits of moving to Deep Dive. Another reason Rinaldi is considering Deep Dive so highly is that they offered to pay her $15,000 more than Potomac is currently offering. Deep Dive also demonstrates a positive work environment by showing her motivation in all the work she does and expressing key interest in who she is as an individual. The major dilemma that she is facing is exploring the challenges of building power and credibility in a new job while managing relationships with superiors and peers. So, to further develop our knowledge of the case and see how we can relate class content, we ran around to 9 different students, college students, and asked them each 3 questions relating to our 3 core topics. The 9 students shared what their understandings were on organizational culture, decision making, and motivating. To begin, we will start with organizational culture. The 3 questions we asked are: what does organizational culture mean to you? What is one way you would want to see this in your future job? If a company is large and well known, but their organizational culture is weak compared to a smaller startup company, which would you want to work for and why? Now let's see what these 3 students have to say in response to the given questions. What does organizational culture mean to you?
Organizational culture is the personality of the company. It creates cohesiveness because companies like Google, in which they have a fun organizational culture where it's more laid back, where you have your rest pods along with candy and work, in which the employees aren't stressed too hard on the output of the work, more of the experience of the work, which just relates to a better work experience along with better work output.
What is one way you would want to see this in your future job?
Yeah, I think it's really key to have organizational culture because I think it really inspires the employees to make them work harder. Happy employees equals happy work, which is more efficient work. So by having an organizational culture in my future job, hopefully kind of like the Google example I gave, I hope for it to be more of a laid back and not too stress oriented, where you feel like you're going to be criticized for your mistakes and rather to just enjoy the experience of the job overall.
Okay. If a company is large and well known, but their organizational culture is weak compared to a smaller startup company, which would you want to work for and why?
The smaller startup company would be more preferable to me, only because with large corporations, you're very replaceable and you're kind of just more of a number when there's no organizational culture. Rather with a startup, I feel like I would have more of an impact and more of my work would be going to something rather than me just doing tedious work more of at a larger corporation and kind of not really enjoying my job, just being okay, I have to do this just to get it done, instead of actually wanting to push the company other than just looking for the next paycheck.
Perfect. Thank you.
What does organizational culture mean to you?
Dang. I would say organizational culture would be when you're like for me, whenever I'm in like a new internship or a new job, being able to see how everybody interacts with another and seeing that they have like a common basis, or they have like a foundation in which everybody's agreeing on something. And not that it has to be like external, but you can kind of feel it within like each person, like, oh, like we all like get along on this common ground, or like we're all like working for this purpose, or like we all are here because we believe in something that this company is doing.
So what is one way you would want to see this in your future job?
I think for me, I really want to be in a job where I'm doing something bigger than myself. So being surrounded by people who are also looking to do that would be a big pro for me.
And if a company is large and well known, but their organizational culture is weak compared to a smaller startup company, which would you want to work for and why?
I think I would rather. Wait, the startup would have the good organizational culture?
The startup has it's a smaller company with a better organizational culture.
I think I would rather work for the startup then, because at least you have some kind of like organization or like some kind of order to it, rather than this big company that kind of just feels like you're robots and you're not really doing anything that means anything, and you kind of just like all hate each other. I think like being in that environment could be toxic and it just feels like meaningless to you. So if you're in like a small culture that is doing something that you like and that other people like, then you're going to be happy.
Hey, what's up, Augie? Today we're going to be talking about organizational culture. So just first off, what does organizational culture mean to you?
Organizational culture means to me having good relationships with everyone that you work with, including your peers and your bosses. And I guess just the relationships make everything run more smoothly within the organization.
Cool. All right. What is the primary way that you want to see organizational culture play an important role in future job selection?
I think when I'm looking for a job in the future, I think that like looking for a place that I'd fit in well, and that I feel I could maximize like my strengths and have people that would be able to cover my weaknesses would be a good fit for me. So I guess that's how I'd look for culture.
Gotcha. When you're looking for a job in the future, if you're trying to decide between a company that's really large and well known, but has kind of weak organizational culture, or you could go to work at a smaller startup company that is maybe less successful at the moment but has strong organizational culture, which would you want to work for and why?
I think I'd probably rather work for the startup because, like I said before, I think culture has a lot to do with relationships, and if this company has a strong culture, then I feel like I could build strong relationships with the people that I work with, and that would help me as a professional and the company overall. So.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks for your input.
Yeah, no problem, Nolan.
Through the 3 interviewees, it was clear that each of them have their own idea of what organizational culture is. Though, from class discussion, we have been able to learn what the proper form of organizational culture looks like. Through our class discussion, we can suggest to Rinaldi that her current job at Potomac is not a place of organizational culture. The first sign of this was when she entered her office for the first time and noticed that her office was set up like a fishbowl. This is an observable artifact, and this is extremely important to know when entering the workforce. The second sign of our observable artifact is how quiet the office floor was, especially when sitting in cubicles, because one would assume that colleagues should be talking and communicating throughout the day, encouraging each other throughout the workforce. Though the overall experience that Rinaldi had with her boss and her cubicle partner clearly shows espoused values, in the sense that working with a new hiree to engage in personal growth is not one of the traits that is important to the company of Potomac. Rinaldi also faced underlying assumptions when her boss states that everything should go through her. But then Rinaldi was also told by her boss that she was too busy to listen and be able to work with Rinaldi, that Rinaldi was best to work with her cubicle partner. But then later found out that her cubicle partner himself was too busy. ending up with Rinaldi having no one to go to, thus not enabling her to better herself in the new workforce that she was in. This identifies a major problem for Rinaldi at Potomac. She's being requested to report everything to her boss, but then her boss is not there to listen and provide constructive feedback for her, and same with her peers, like her cubicle partner or other people on the work floor in the cubicle area. Finally, Rinaldi and her cubicle partner displayed a strong case of enacted values when they broke out in a yelling argument in front of the entire office floor. No one was there to back her up, but then she later found out that people actually supported her and were very grateful that she did say something. To further our study, we asked 3 different students questions about decision making. The 3 questions we asked them were, when making important decisions, do you use your intuition or rational thought? The second question we asked was, what process do you go through to make important decisions? And finally, the last question that we asked them was, would you work in a large company or a small startup company? And then we asked, what led you to make this decision? And this is what the students had to say.
Hey, what's up, Max? Just here to talk to you about decision making a little bit today. So I guess just first off, what kind of process do you go through when you make important decisions in your life?
You know, think about it real hard, real long. Maybe consult with my father. He's a smart guy. He tends to know some good answers. You know, get a nice public consensus from people who I know and trust. And yeah, that's probably about it.
Cool. I guess when you're going through your decision-making process, do you tend to use intuition or more like a rational thought process?
Probably intuition. I go for what feels good. Some could say I'm irrational, but it's okay, you know. So far, so good, I'd say. You know, yeah, intuition for sure.
Cool. And then in the future, do you see yourself working at like a large company or like more of a small startup or something in between, and like what kind of led you to this decision?
Maybe small startup or something in between. Maybe something that's already established but not too large. I like the idea of like kind of like knowing everybody around me, like a nice more togetherness as opposed to a large firm where like not everyone knows each other. I like the idea of people being closer when you're working together. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, Max. Thanks for your time.
Of course.
When making important decisions, do you use your intuition or a rational thought?
Both usually. At first I'll use my intuition, like whatever comes to mind initially, but at the end of the day I'll use my rational thought to sort of decipher the problem in front of me and see what the best option would be.
What process do you go through to make those important decisions?
I would consult people that I respect and I think that have a very good source of judgment. But I give it a lot of independent thought, like rational thought. At the end of the day, I feel like if I give it time and I think about it well enough, I can outweigh the consequences and see which one would be the best decision for me.
Based on these, would you work in a large company or a small startup? What led you to make this decision?
I would personally want to work in a smaller company just because I feel like you'd be playing a bigger role in the company, moving it forward, instead of sort of being like a really small cog in a very big machine, sort of just going through the movements every day. I want to feel like I'm a part of something instead of sort of just working towards nothing.
Thank you.
All right. When making important decisions, do you use your intuition or rational thought?
I would say I definitely use rational thought. I'm one of those people who like has to look at all types or all like aspects of a decision and like really think about each one, and it takes me like forever. Like I'm never like that gut intuition person. I'm always like rational, I'd say.
All right, so what process do you go through when making an important decision?
Well, usually I kind of look at like all different like decisions I could make and like the pros and cons of each, and then I get a lot of like of my friends' opinions on like everything. I can never really make a decision on my own. I feel like I always am asking like friends who like care about me and want the best for me, like what I should do.
Okay, and then would you work in a large company or a small startup company?
Definitely small startup, because I like the creative feel and like, you know, kind of like making it as I go.
So what led you to make that decision?
Kind of like my own interests. I guess that was kind of an intuition because it was so off the cuff, but I think like it's just like my own like creative interests like would just work better in a startup. And I've thought about this like before too, so yeah.
There are two major parts of decision making: intuition and rational thought. Intuition is based on experience and feelings. People tend to ask themselves, what does my experience tell me about this decision? Are there any lessons from the past that I can draw from? How does the decision feel to me? Rational thought, on the other hand, is based on logical information and analysis. These people tend to ask questions like, how do we make sense of the information collected? Both have benefits and limitations. Intuition allows for creativity, but it is often self-interested and overly optimistic. Rational thought, on the other hand, allows for objectivity, but depends on accuracy of information. Rinaldi shows that she needs a clear sense of overall decision making. She lets cognitive bias take place. She went off intuition instead of rational thought when deciding between the two jobs. When she interviewed at Potomac, everyone was very nice and engaging. This can be thought of as framing bias, tendency to react to a particular choice based on how it was presented, as Rinaldi thought the employees at Potomac were nice and therefore felt it would be a good place to work. Contradictorily, Rinaldi believed that Potomac was a better choice based on the fact that they were a larger, more established company. This is anchoring bias, as she relied too heavily on the first piece of information. Rinaldi believed that Potomac was a bigger company and would therefore give her more of an opportunity to learn, grow, and be successful. However, Deep Dive offered her more money and she still turned them down. She thought that Potomac would be able to teach her more when it comes to marketing, but as we can see from her partner Jamie, he had been there for many years and still had no true understanding of marketing. In the next set of questions, we asked 3 students questions regarding motivation. The questions are as follows. What motivates you when looking for a specific job? Are you more extrinsic or intrinsically motivated? Additionally, we did show them an image and asked them to interpret the story being portrayed, and this is what they said.
What motivates you when looking for a specific job?
As I'm looking for jobs, I first look at the title and position to make sure I'm even qualified to apply, and then from there I look at the company as a whole to see if it's somewhere I would like to fit in, and look at like the culture of it to see if there's somewhere I can see myself on a day-to-day basis, and then to make like final decision, definitely like what the salary is and the perks to make sure that's something I can live off of.
Okay, next question. After explaining extrinsic and intrinsic values to you, would you say that you're more extrinsic or intrinsic?
I would say that I'm probably more extrinsic just because I'm more straightforward on task and have one goal in mind, and once I accomplish that I move forward instead of looking for an ultimate mastery in life, which is probably not the best thing, but that's okay.
Interpret the following photo that you've just seen. It can be anything you want, just make up a story about what you see.
What I see a man who's very confused about what decision he should make. One job's telling him to go this way, one's trying to go that way. He's trying to make a very tough decision of what he should be doing. Very confused.
What motivates you when looking for a specific job?
So I'm currently pursuing a career in healthcare, so what motivates me is the ability to help others around me through my studying and being able to help others that might not know what's wrong about them, and I might be that connection between the unknown and the known, and just assuring people that there is an answer to problems that they might think there wouldn't originally be.
Are you more extrinsic or intrinsic?
I would have to say intrinsic. Of course, money does provide assurance and comfortability, but I feel that I am motivated enough to further my studies, but in order to continue human progress and being able to change at least one person's life through the medical field.
Perfect. After me showing you a picture, tell me the story. Evaluate the picture that you saw.
So I would assume this guy got an interview on Shark Tank, and he has a choice to go through the corporate side or having a private business. And in my opinion, the corporate position might have more opportunities. It might more of a reach in the business field that the private business wouldn't be able to expand to, or just even more supplies to further the desired outcome or project or action. But at least with the private business, I think you're actually able to pursue a dream that you had and be able to mold a lifestyle based on your own values and beliefs that can be pursued into a lifestyle. And then it also might seem like there are less options than the bigger corporations, but at the end of the day, you are independent to your own actions and don't have to follow a path that is made by others, and you can make your own path. So
Perfect.
that's how
Thank you.
What motivates you when looking for a specific job?
I think location. I love LA, and DC. That's kind of like my markets, but mostly just the culture. I think that if I had a choice of doing my dream job with people I hate and doing my like the absolute worst job ever with people I love, I'd probably do that because I think that the people I'm around make the experience.
Okay, so after explaining extrinsic and intrinsic values, are you more extrinsic or intrinsically motivated?
I think extrinsically, mostly just because as a person, I think it's a strength and a weakness, but I'm a people pleaser, and so most of what I do relates to how people are gonna react. So whether that's keeping negative things from happening or encouraging a positive response from people.
Okay, so now look at this picture and tell me what you think is going on.
Interesting. Well, he looks like a professional. It kind of looks like a bunch of road signs that are absolutely blank, and he's just really confused and like slightly pissed off about it. The first one, right? Or the second one too?
First.
Yeah. He's just like really confused because he has road signs with no direction, which I relate to.
To conclude, and after analyzing the case in further depth, as a group, we decided that the best option for Rinaldi would be to quit her job at Potomac and go work for Deep Dive. The reason that we led to this conclusion was because, one, Deep Dive is offering her more money, and two, Deep Dive wanting to expand their restaurant chain and further develop their growth as a company is going to need someone that's able to do marketing. And that is exactly what Rinaldi wants to do. The reason she chose the job at Potomac was because she believed that they would be the ones to teach her and help guide her in the direction of marketing. Though, from our case and from hearing what Pat had to say about the case, we all now know that Jamie, who had been there for 5 years, still has no understanding of how to better market products or even himself. Thus concluding further that Potomac is not the place that Rinaldi needs to be to further develop her marketing skills. So working at Deep Dive, she would be able to expand her knowledge in marketing, she'd be getting a greater salary, and she already has that personal connection with the CEO and the manager because she did intern there for the summer. Overall, through each core topic that we discussed, there would be nothing but positive outcome for Rinaldi to work at Deep Dive and quit her job at Potomac.